I have always asked the guests so far to give the story about how they came to New York. How did you get here?
I got here slowly. I got almost here by going to school at Rutgers, which is where I went to acting school. And that was partly, I went to Rutgers partly because of their program and because one of the years you go to, well, at the time, well, they still do it. They've changed their program a bit, but at the time, your third year, you go to London, you study Shakespeare for 6 months. And that was a huge thing that I wanted to do. But also I knew when I first started acting that I quickly learned about theater and I quickly learned about how it was like what I wanted to do. And then I was like, well, there's no other place to go to. So this was like 2015, 16, which is when I started acting around. And basically ever since then, I was like, okay, well, I'm eventually going to get to New York. So going to Rutgers, I was like, well, this is perfect. It's 45 minutes away. I moved at the time in 2019 when some of my friends from my hometown moved here. So I would go to Rutgers, and then on some weekends I'd come out here and I would just meet some people. I'd tell everybody it was my soft opening of New York, and I'll be here eventually. And then I moved here in 2023, September 2023. It's a few months, 6 months after graduating. So sort of a longer time. I didn't do the whole like just I'm just gonna move there with 25 cents to my name. I was maybe more practice. My parents probably also wouldn't have allowed me to do that without maybe showing, some of the dedication of going to a train thing or something. They're like, are you sure? You're like, actually, they're like, so it was just something that I took over time and took my time doing. Crawled here.
How did you know New York would be the eventual destination?
Well, I mean, again, theater, there's just no denying that the theater out here is. And it's not just saying that the theater out here, it's just that there's a quality of the actors out here that are like trying to be in theater that I think there's more of a sense of, I don't know what it is, but a sense of like interest in theater to me as the medium of the actor. And that's where like actors thrive and can truly show their skill. Like on television and screen and stuff, like actors can do great performances, sure, but it's hidden the fact that there are many other things that are going into an actor's performance in that. And it could be the edit, it could be like a bunch of things. But on a theater stage with 2 hours, it's you and the audience, and that's it. You gotta make or break out there, and it's all up to you essentially after doing the rehearsal process. So I think that just that alone, actors being down for that, just says something about what they're trying to accomplish in their sort of whatever it is. So that idea to me brought me like, okay, I want to go to New York. And then I would visit New York and I'd be like, yeah, this place is awesome. I'm having a blast. It's the place I want to be. It feels like, it's just always felt like I'd love to be around people. I love to walk outside and, be surrounded by thousands of people. And just, I think it's also for that reason, also why actors out here are maybe, better. Is just that they're surrounded by people. You can't not be surrounded by true human nature. Like you get to people watch all the time. You get to be surrounded by how people really are. So of course that's gonna manifest in the work somehow, some way. So yeah, that New York was just I never had to think about it. Yeah.
How did you know acting was something you were going to pursue? We were talking a little bit about this before we started recording. What's the story there?
I mean, the college essay version is like is like when I was in 5th grade, I was the class president, and I did a few things in elementary school that I just knew that I loved being on a stage. In like 3rd grade, I read like a storybook for something in front of the auditorium in my elementary school. And then in 5th grade, I won class president because my speech, I went out in a Darth Vader mask and did a funny speech and then took it off and told the principal that I was his father. So there were like things that I was just always like, I just wanted to do it. And then did sports stuff in high school. And then afterwards, after I graduated from high school, then sports was gone. I didn't want to continue doing sports. And I had just such a hole. I was like, oh shit, like my whole life was just doing sports, hanging out with my friends, doing some other stuff. But I didn't realize that sports was like what I mainly did. And when it was taken away, I was like, oh shit, I don't feel like I have anything. And I was like, what do I do? And I was like, well, let's try an acting class, because that was the thing that you've always wanted to do. And I'm feeling like I want to do it right now. So it was just an impulse. It was just an impulse in me. Like I didn't have to think hard about it. I didn't have to do anything. And then when I took the first class, it was just immediate. It was just evident to me. Not only that, but I was like, I felt like I had the skill, the qualities that would eventually make a good actor, or that I could not even would make a good actor, but that I could do something with all the sort of random things that I was at the time, which is like charismatic, outgoing, funny, et cetera, these things. Like I love to read. I was a quick reader. I knew that I could I can read things really fast and say them out loud. Like I don't have a hard time processing written things. So I was just like, there's a lot of ways in which I can really do this and make something out of my life with this. It made sense to me. So that was, yeah, I didn't have to convince myself at all. I truly just had to take the first class. I took one class that was like acting on camera. I didn't really know what I was doing. And then I took another like intro scene study class, which is more so like the bread and butter of like pick a scene from a play, work on it with a partner, with a teacher. And I did it at community college. And walking home like the second to last class after like doing a scene that like went well, the teacher gave us compliments and stuff, and I was just feeling on top of the world, feeling like the actor's high for one of the first times, and just walking home and just truly like I was walking home and like I was telling you, it felt like I was seeing like a tracks appear in front of me, and I was just like, all I have to do is follow this, and all of the other things that I'm struggling with in my life I'll be eventually able to sort of make something out of it.
What in your mind are the qualities that do make a great actor in your experience?
The first thing that makes like a great actor, I think, the first thing is that I think there's maybe the universal quality, because just trying to think of that question, one of the things I thought of is that when I first went to this like callback weekend for drama school, when I was like still kind of feeling like I was like, I'd been doing it for about 3 or 4 years, maybe at that point, maybe even less, 2.5, 3 years, and still feeling like I didn't like I was training in acting, but I didn't really feel like I was like meeting other like actors really, and like people that were maybe thinking about things in my way. And I was like, what makes an actor? And like what, like I was trying to, when you try to sort of, I think both in coming out and in becoming an actor later in my life, it's so clear that like I was trying to both as an actor and as a gay man I was trying to like enact what I thought that was. And then after a few years, I was like, well, what I learned about in acting drama school at the callback weekend is that I met people that I was just like, oh shit, like anyone can be an actor. Like an actor is not does not have to fit the mold of like, I don't know, Doc Marten boots wearing like flannel shirt. Like there's just like, there's just things. So that's my preface to the fact that a great actor can be anyone. It can look like anyone, and there's not something, but to then try to answer the question is certainly a sense of like acceptance of being able to go with the flow of things and be able to the like sort of improv idea of never say no, and learning all the ways in which you can subtly say no to things. And an actor, I think a great actor is someone who is able to truly say yes with their whole being to anything that comes up. Whether it's like a mistake that happens on stage, a great actor is not going to flinch and is just going to go with it and trust the fact that they're not in control of the performance, and that they're not like, you don't need to take sort of as much responsibility for your performance, because you understand that like giving yourself over to something is actually the way into something, and the way to like truly channeling something is to remove all of the like layers that you have to sort of be able to do anything. I mean, when I'm acting and when I'm doing great, I don't necessarily feel like comfortable necessarily taking credit for what I did, because when you leave yourself alone and you're just doing things, it's just natural and it comes to you from somewhere else. Like that's, you know, the sort of spirit, you know, the whole thing of like, you know, the and if the writer does their job, you don't really have to do that much work. If you've put in the work of training and stuff and like doing all these things, like there's a ton of hard work that an actor does, but it never should show up on stage, really. So there's a quality of like openness to receiving whatever comes to you and not and accepting that and being like, I don't necessarily think maybe this wasn't in my plan of of how the play should go or what this should do, but a great actor can just be like, oh, wow, this is not what I expected. Thank God. Like, thank God this is something that's happening that I could not plan for, because that's probably going to be better than whatever they planned for. And a sense of also of just being able to be like brave, and that takes bravery, and that's taking risks on stage. It doesn't sound, it's more of like a passive bravery in that sense than to just like open yourself up. Because it's you're essentially trying to do less. You're not trying to like do something with it. You're just like, I can exist and be interesting and do something. And so actors that are like able to have the confidence and have whatever it takes to be like, no, you know what, this is what I'm going to do, and people are going to like it or not going to like it, but it doesn't even matter. Like, I'm interested in my own thing, and I think that's like the only thing that I could really point to of what makes a great actor, you know, life experience and being able to maybe being observational about human nature and being able to be really like exacting with yourself when you're acting and being like, how would an actual person act in this situation? Like, how would it actually be? What would it actually look like? And really being like rigorous with yourself to never sort of stop that pursuit of like, what's really real here? How would someone actually do that? And you just ask yourself, you know, how would I do it first? You'd be like, what would I do in this situation? How would I actually act? And so someone who's like, I think being an observant person is really helpful. I see myself as like extremely observant of just like the real world around me, just like the physical reality. I don't really think of myself as someone who's like head in the clouds. Like, you know, I'm always like very aware of what's around me and very aware of that. And I think that helps me because I'm also aware of like, I can also be aware of like how I act in real situations and be like, what do I actually look like when I get really angry? And I'm like, when I get really angry, I get really quiet and like really like, cause I'm fighting with all my effort to not show that I'm angry, but I'm so angry. And I'm just like, you know, I don't want to push the boat. I don't want to rock the boat. There's so many reasons. I'm like, what am I doing when I'm really angry? And it's not, I never yell. I never do this. So just sort of understanding those first things and understanding how humans actually act, how people actually act and what we're actually trying to do with our emotions and stuff is also really helpful. Because when I started acting too, it was like, all I wanted to do was cry on stage. Cause I was like, you know, I was like, I have a lot of emotions inside of me and I never cry in front of people. And I mean, that's not 100%, that's not true, but when I cry, it's like at night in my bed, I'm crying for these things. And so all I ever wanted to do with monologues and all you want to do is show you're a good actor. And it's like, how do you show you're a good actor? It's like, well, you cry like really believably. But then there's a sort of like thing where it's like, as soon as you as the actor are trying to make yourself cry, you're dead in the water because no one in life ever tries to make themselves cry. The emotion comes up and then people fight with every being to not cry and to not show that they're crying. So it's like, that's a sort of like paradox. There's many paradoxes in like acting and theater where it's like, you're trying to be believable, but if you're trying to drum up if you're trying to generate these emotions, you're immediately starting from a place of somewhere different. It's not real life. And actors just want to, actors want to be good and they want to do a good job and they want people to think that they're good and show that they're good and show these things. And so it's like, okay, well, I'll show all these emotions. I'll do all these emotions, but it's like, that's not what people actually want to see.
You said before we were recording that the moment where you decided to pursue this, there was a bit of I think the phrase you use is like the tracks were kind of laid before you as a path. And I'm curious about how you knew that. What do you remember about that revelation and that moment?
I mean, it was probably, there was like, the actor's high is very real. And it's a sense of like, you're going home after, it's like, that the scene that I was doing in the acting class was like, it was a fight, a relationship fight. And what I was just talking about is probably all I was doing was like doing a lot of shouting and yelling and stuff. But it just felt good. And then we got praised for it. And the teacher was like, good work, guys. Like, you came a long way. And I was like, whoa, shit. Like, wow. Okay. I don't know what I necessarily just did, but like, that was really cool. That was really fun. And so I was walking home and it's just this elation of like, you know, I think expressing emotions is really healthy, a really healthy thing for humans, especially if you can do it in a way that isn't like tied to actual hardship and trauma and pain. If you can, like, just the act of expressing emotions becomes something that afterwards you're like, wow, I really feel lightened and lifted. And, you know, you're just walking on cloud nine and you're excited and things are fun. So it was part of that, of me being like, oh, wow, that was a lot of fun. But it was also just a sense of like, it was just a sense of knowing myself and knowing that I had a lot of things going on with myself, interior, of struggling with myself and my identity and emotions and feeling really sort of down and out. I was back home after going to college for a year, and then I left, and then I was lost. I took a year off and I was working and didn't do anything, and I was thinking about it. So it was also, I was in a place where I needed something to latch onto, because I didn't see what kind of worth or value I'd be able to like add to things. I was like, I don't see myself being able to like really do that good. And like, you know, at the time I was thinking of it as like an office job. You know, it's a very like young, sort of naive, like, oh, I can't work at a cubicle. Like, oh my God, no, I need to do something for myself for free. So there was certainly a lot of like situational things going on that it just came out, and I was like, you know, fuck it, this is going to be the thing. But at the same time, it was a way of, I mean, like just doing some scene work and just doing that, it was just a way into like exploring the world, exploring ideas and things, and being able to use some of the skills that I feel like I had, which was like a good reader. I could understand things quickly, but I also knew, like, I had a sense back then of like sort of what was required of it. And I could just see that the path of like needing to become an actor, of the path of becoming a better actor, is the path of becoming like a better person in a sense, and of trying to like, that's what you asked about, what makes a good actor. And it's so hard to put your finger on that quality, because an actor just brings their whole life to the roles every time. And so however versed you are in the world is however versed you'll be able to be on stage and in a character and in a performance. So it just felt like a really good way. Like I just had, you know, a lot of like knowledge about things. I just had a lot of like facts in my heads and like things that I didn't like. I was like, okay, great. I'm good at Jeopardy. I can answer questions, and like, what do I do with this knowledge? I didn't necessarily think of myself as like a smart person, but I was like sort of maybe worldly or wise, or in some sense. So I was just getting a sense that like, I can put all of myself, all of the struggles I'm having right now into this craft, and that will fulfill me in itself, and I'll be able to like say that I'm an actor, and my life will make sense to me. Like I think that's what the track was, more so feeling it, of like, I was just a swirling sort of like, you know, mist of like ideas and things, and being able to tie it all together with the acting was just making sense to me. Yeah. Yeah.
You played sports. I'm wondering if you also had a sense that you had talent. You must have sensed that. How did you know that?
That's part of it too. I was like, shit, I think I can be really good at this. That was a big thing. I was like, I think I can actually, it was like, I just knew, I mean, when I would be, there was always a sense of like, there's the thing called the X factor. And I didn't necessarily know this at the time, but I was like, I think I could have that thing. I think that I could just like, I think that I have that if I work hard at this, and I think I could be good at this, because like I was just like in my personal life and stuff with like friends and stuff, I could just like make people laugh really hard. I'm like fun and like good at that, and enjoyed doing that, and enjoyed like talking, and I enjoy, you know, I enjoy being the one talking. I enjoy like people watching me in some sense, not in like a weird sense of like, but I like to be, I don't know how to describe it, but there was that sense of just like, yeah, I think I have what it takes. I didn't exactly know what an actor was at that time, but I was like intuiting what the sort of qualities were of, you know, sort of like improvisational skills and like, you know, charisma, and also being an athlete. I was like, I also was like, you know, very into like the idea of like training and, you know, doing things, not correct, but like taking the time to work on it, you know, get in the gym and work on the skills and stuff. And that was also something that I was like, I want to do that. And I think that was that part of me, and that part of the athlete in me never went away, of wanting to work on a craft and to do something that was like building a skill, or just like, it was a very physical thing too. Acting is a very physical thing, and that there's a lot of actually similarities between like what athletes do and what actors do, just in very different worlds. So yeah, it was just like a whole holistic thing where I was just like, this is definitely, acting is like absolutely the thing where I can like make the best use of everything that I sort of feel like I am and could be. Yeah.
If you're comfortable talking about it, I'd be curious to know how being closeted for all those years has influenced, affected, helped you as an actor, or maybe not at all.
Yeah, no, it helped me immensely. And it was also, only until coming out, I realized that it was also what was like the main thing holding me back from getting really good. And, but initially it was like like I just was unable to, my journey with sexuality was very full of like ignoring it and then realizing it and then being like, oh fuck, like I can never do this. I was still am bad at having like real conversations, I feel like, or like things where I need to like say, you know, real deep things about myself, or, you know, the whole act of like coming out felt impossible to me. I was like, I can never have this conversation with anyone. And so it led to a lot of torment, and it led to a lot of like uncomfortable when I was at my first year of college. And then I was, you know, I just didn't know nothing made sense to me. Making new friends was super scary. I was like, at some point, you know, when you make a new friend, you're gonna have to like talk about sex or romance or something, and that's gonna be like the time when I have no idea what to do, and I was so scared of that I just would rather like go home and like. So I lived with my parents. I went to community college, and that time I had some good friends, but at the same time, it was like the start of really that sort of like loneliness / that sort of the border of loneliness and solitude that artists talk about, that an artist truly does need. I think it was like I think it's like Tarkovsky, the director, that has like a repeatable quote meme thing of him talking about the difference between loneliness and solitude and how the artist needs solitude. And so I think that was like the most helpful thing for my artistry, was that period of community college, living at home when I was just doing my own thing. And I was basically kind of like on my own and finding out who I was. And I came out of all of it by myself, not by myself entirely, but like I really struggled alone and sort of quietly, and turned to art to get me out of things like movies. That was part of also why I started acting, is because like Philip Seymour Hoffman and stuff in movies, like seeing his performances just like reached out to me and just did something to me that I was like, oh shit, like this is so good. But that was also like, I can do that. I know I can. I know I have the same like these emotions in me or something. But that sense of really, really like finding out who you are on your own and making your own sort of like, when I went to community college, I then found out about like acting conservatories, and I was like, oh shit, I can like just take acting class. Like I can just go to college and like just get in off of the audition and not do math classes and stuff. Like great. And so when I went to community college, I was just taking classes that interested me, like philosophy of art classes, art history, like things that I was like, I need to develop my artist sense, and I need to learn about art. I need to learn about the disciplines, and I was interested in it. So I basically put myself through like I just learned the things that I wanted to learn, and I learned them about art. And that was, to me, deeply connected to being in the closet, because being in the closet was, for me, deeply isolationary thing that I was just like, it's me and me here right now. And I'm working on this with myself. And then also coming out of the closet is when I learned like really that no one gives a shit about you. Like in a sense, like in the great sense, I was so like, once I finally was like, shit, I really need to come out, because I went to a callback weekend at Rutgers, and the work they do there, at the time they were doing Meisner first and second year. They were doing the whole Meisner program, which is a specific training technique. And the first year is a lot about like, a lot of the first year Meisner stuff is, there's no script. You're using stuff that you come up with. These like, you build up these things, and you're working from yourself. And I was watching them in the first year class, and I didn't know, like, when you're watching it, it looks like the person is just like bringing up their like trauma or like their shit, like just right there, and doing it without any safety railings, as safety railings as in like text and script and stuff. And they were just doing it, and I was sitting there and I was like terrified, because it was before I came out. And I was like, fuck, I cannot do this work if I'm not out. Like I cannot. And I was like, and that was the whole thing of like, I can't be truthful if I'm not being truthful with myself. Like there's a level of like, you have to be able to like, as I was saying, of the actors, just the skill of the actor is as much of who you are as a person. You know, it's like, I have to come out. I can't start this work if I'm in the closet. It just won't work. So that was what, like, I was already thinking about it, but that led me to doing that. And then, so I was like, shit, like, how do I do this? And all this coming out was a long process for me of trying to tell people. And then like, I told like 2 people, and then I was like, okay. And I'm like, in the next week, I'm going to like come out to my parents and like do this, and it's all going to be great. And it took me like 6 months after telling the first person to tell like the friends that I wanted to tell and stuff. But I learned in that process, when I would tell them, I was always expecting like a huge reaction of like, oh my God, like, wow, stuff. And it'd be like every person I told, I'd be like, I'm gay or whatever. They'd be like, oh, cool. Like, yeah. I'd be like, wow, what a fucking letdown that was. And it was just a real like, oh shit, like no one was really, when you're in the closet also, I was like so paranoid all the time that it's like, my friends are just like, everyone's talking about me behind my back of like, you know, we all know. And like, it's so embarrassing, or like, just like what's going on with him. And you think that like everyone's as focused in on who you're, the quote unquote truth of who you are as a person as much as you are. And then I did it, and I was like, wow, that's crazy. No one was really thinking about that. And so I learned like, okay, great. I just took from it. I was like, okay, I can really do anything, because it's not, because really no one's thinking about me like that. And it's really fine. And then sort of realizing then in coming out, I also like, then I had my first crush, and I like, things also really strongly, I learned from that. I was like, wow, I was really living like really capped, like not able to, my first crush, I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, it's supposed to be this easy. And everything was just making more, like songs were making sense, and like things were just like, I was like, wow, I've not lived my life like this for 24 years. It's crazy. I still go back and I'm like, I might have been a better basketball player had I been not struggling with myself, because there's just a sense of like capping yourself. And you just, when you're like afraid to sort of like, when you're trying to like surveil yourself a lot, you just can't relax and enjoy things. And that's certainly a quality you need as an actor, to not be surveilling yourself. You need to be able to let go, and you need to be able to just be like, fuck it, I'm not watching myself. I don't care. All this kind of stuff. And I think that there's that's like maybe a confidence And I think there's a confidence in like athletes as well. There's a sort of like, there's also an X factor in athletics. It's not just who's the fastest and the strongest. There's also qualities that you can't necessarily put your finger on that make someone like a good athlete. And I think that there's similarities in what makes a good athlete and a good actor of someone able to like see just more so than like the physical parts of it and see something else. And that takes a sort of confidence in yourself. No one can give you that. You have to give yourself the permission to do that because it's the most important thing to be like, I have my own thoughts about this, or like I'm not like waiting for a teacher to be like, yes, that's good, that's right. It's just like, oh, give me this, I'll go do it. I have ideas for this. I'm going to show you, and maybe it's bad, maybe it's good. It doesn't matter. It's that. So yeah, coming out of the closet gave me a confidence. I was like, holy shit, I never thought I could do that ever in my life. I never thought that would be possible, and I did it. And it was like, now I can do anything. Now that was like the thing that was holding me back. I mean, there's that and then anything else beyond that is for like a therapist because it doesn't get, it's not that cut and dry coming out of the closet for me.
You just used the word afraid. In retrospect, do you think the resistance to coming out was mostly fear of embarrassment, fear of what
fear of
exactly?
Embarrassment, a sort of sense of like a sense that grew over time of like the more that I realized that I was like in the closet and that I was like, no, I'm interested in like women, like for sure. Like there's a little bit in there, like, but then like as the years went on, I was just like, oh man, and then there was things where I learned for sure that I was like, there's something about women that I do not like. Not in that way, women, ladies out there, love you all. But, just the way that I was like, that did not feel right. That can't be. So then it got to a feeling of like I was living a lie, that I was lying and that I wasn't. And that coming out was actually not just, it was an admittance of who I was. It was admittance of like, I'm so sorry, everyone, that I was like consciously holding this back from people. And like, that's painful to be like, to take the self responsibility of like, fuck, like you guys weren't keeping me in the closet, I was. And like, there's a sense of like, I'm so sorry that I was like so weird all this time. Like, just like, you didn't know who I was, like just so many things of like an embarrassment of like, why can't I just, no one is going to reject me for who I am. Everyone's going to love me the same. And that stuff is so hard to deal with of like, why was it still so hard for me to come out? And those are even for me, why it was so hard to come out was more like a personal things of like, I'm scared to have conversations, like real conversations. I'm scared to like confront things with people. So the reasons that were keeping me in the closet were very personally like things that I weren't comfortable with myself. So admitting that I was out was also in me admitting that like I was very flawed or, whatever it was, and hoping that it wasn't. And it, those were the things that I was saying, and people came out and they were like, oh, great. I was like, wait, what about all the other stuff that I was worried about? And, no one cared. It was just fine. And I think that's also helps me as an actor because I'm like, there's more confusing things. Like the surface is I'm out now and it's great and everyone's like, oh, that's great. But it's like the deeper thing, like the more nuanced human things going on in me where I'm just like, there's more at play here. Like, why was it still so hard for me to come out? Like, why? Like, it's not just my fault. Of course, there are many things in like society and things that make it hard and that made me feel that way. And that there was a frustration in me not being able, I want to communicate that with people when I was coming out, but it's not like it's not necessarily, everyone's like, okay, great, you're out. Like, that's just, everyone's like, we just want you to be gay, we love you, whatever. And I'm like, wait, no, but there's still like, but it's not the time and place. And I think that there's the time and place for those kind of conversations, for those kind of things is on the stage. It's a similar thing when I was talking about like, I love talking about art, but sometimes when I'm like at a bar and I am like talking about, I've realized 5 minutes in that I'm like, oh, I don't, just because I'm really into it, just because art is cool, doesn't mean that like everybody just wants to like talk about it and like do that. And that's the same thing about coming out and talking about these things where there's just like personal things where it's like everybody deals with shit and everybody has societal things that put on them. And it's like to just sort of like, make it, the coming out process can be a very selfish thing, not in the bad way, but, selfish because I'm concerned about myself. Like I'm just thinking about myself all the time because it's a problem that I have to deal with. And then when you come out, you want to like talk about it, but everyone's like, we weren't thinking about it that deep, bro. It's like, so the place to get those things out is on stage or through art, because that's the place to like work through those emotions and to put it into a package that actually gives something to someone, instead of, sort of holding someone hostage and, giving them your diatribe about why society is whatever it is that I was talking about. Yeah.
I'd love to know the story about how the first week, your mentality when you finally did make the jump to move here, what went into that, why you decided it was time, how you survived in the initial few weeks, anything that comes to mind about that transition to actually living in New York.
It almost felt kind of late because I graduated in January of 2023. And I moved here in September of 2023. So I went home for like 6 months and I didn't really quite know how I was going to do it. And I was just like, I wasn't necessarily working. I mean, it just happened. It just finally like a place opened up and it was like time and it was feeling good. So things just lined up. I could just take a sublet and then a sublet. And then I found a place to move into. I mean, things kind of fell into my lap. And also I have my parents helped me out and it wasn't that hard. I'm like, I don't necessarily have to struggle as hard because my parents are like, okay, we can like help you out for the first few years that you're there. So fully acknowledging that is like, has massively helped me, and I didn't have to struggle hugely to like, worry about like immediately getting a job and like immediately doing things. Yeah, that's all I can really say on that, is that it wasn't necessarily that hard for me. And it's also to make a point of like that is, the actor's life is extremely hard, and that there's many things, and that a lot of it takes some kind of, it doesn't take, but a lot of actors have, parents that help them or something that are able to like give them a little bit of breathing room to be able to like not be bogged down by like a service job that they're working 8 days a week, and that kind of stuff. It was still difficult to then be like finding work and stuff as an actor and thinking about that and trying to just be like, okay, I'm here, but now what? And that's still a constant thing where I'm like, I'm doing a few things, but it's like, it doesn't really feel like enough at all. Yeah, I mean, the answer for that is definitely like coming from a privileged place for sure. Yeah.
How did you find work?
I was on Backstage. Backstage is the place for actors to get work, and it was.
What is that? What is Backstage?
Backstage is it's like a, to put it very simply, it's like a Craigslist for acting work. It could be anything from like people doing a student film to like a call for like a national commercial or like a Broadway equity call or something. So there's just a lot of stuff. Or also there's like postings for like, come be a real estate agent, or like come, and there was one for catering. And I was like, well, shit, I'm not getting anything back from most of the people that I'm submitting out to for this. So maybe I'll get that. And the catering company took like 2 months to get back to me. And I was like, in that time, I was like, shit, I can't even get a catering job to respond to me on Backstage. I was really like, God damn, this shit is, they say the actor's life is hard, and I knew it, and I always was like, yeah, I can do it. But then when you're really in it, it's really hard because it's just truly hard. It's hard and it's scary for sure. But they got back to me, and I thought they were a scam. They're not at all. They're a great company to work for. And it's nice. It's nice to like, support me. And it doesn't always, I can do like, it's a lot of like 16-hour jobs and stuff, like weddings and stuff. And I can work, I don't have to work like 3 days. I can work like 3 days, and that'll like supply me for like a week of, of something. And I can have more time off for like a full day to be more of in the acting world. And then I picked up work here at the Brooklyn Center, just working at the bar and working the stuff, and just trying to find any kind of way to to put some money together that was not tied to working jobs that would like drain my energy. I worked as a barista for a really long time, supporting myself through community college. And that was just, it was very hard for me personally. I mean, it's hard for everybody, but it's like you get off and you're just like, I just have no energy to do anything. And I just want to have energy to do something vaguely. So I don't want to, I'm trying to like find ways that are making just enough money that I can be, just making it, but more so prioritize the amount of like time I have to not feel burnt out in other ways. Yeah.
If we talk in a year and 2 years and 3 years, where do you want your career to go? Where are you aiming at this point?
It's a really good question. I mean, in theater for sure. I want to be in 2 years. I want to be like, known for doing some theater shows and known in the broader theater community here in New York. And hopefully then from that be getting offers or be in with like people who are making movies in a maybe more independent way. I'm not sure. I'm very like, part of me feels like scared of the industry, and I'm not necessarily, another part of me feels like, is the TV and film industry, like a lot of it turns me off for sure in the way of like casting, how casting works and like who they're looking for, the kind of things that they're making. It's my side of actors being like judgmental and scared that I'm not going to get work, and like to be able to like, have a lens of like, oh, well, I don't want to work for them because they're bad. But it's like, no, if they offered me a job right now, I'd be there in 2 seconds. I'd be there immediately. And I would quiet up all of my inner, cultural critiques and societal critiques. I'd be like, fuck it, I'm about to be on the show, like whatever. I'm a hungry actor. I'll do anything. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, yeah, there are really annoying and unsavory parts of the entertainment industry that are like, it's like when when I started this, I wanted to be like an actor, like Philip Seymour Hoffman is doing like, work that felt like whatever. And then the reality, you're like, well, actually, like, honestly, like the entertainment industry creates as many like bad stereotypes about things as they do things to like create healing things or whatever artists say they are doing. The entertainment industry, they love to congratulate themselves, but it's like, okay, but also it's like, who's also, who provides stereotypes of people, or who provides like these things, who plants in these images in our heads. And as society, as things get more and more real of like, oh shit, like this government is really doing harm. Social media is doing harm. Everyone's sort of becoming an actor through social media and things. It's just like, there is a time when it's like, okay, I really do need to be like, what do I want to do with this? Because I don't want to be famous. I want to make a lot of money. I don't want to be like, fame for certainly scares me, but you don't necessarily have to be worried about that, because it's not easy to be famous. It's not easy to get famous. It's not even easy to get a job. But those like, my reasons for becoming an actor were at the heart of it a bit vague of like, what do I actually want to do with it? Now that I am like, at first I just wanted to become a good actor. I started acting and I was like, this is good. Acting helps me. Movies have helped me. I love this. This is great. I know I can do something with this. And so I wanted to get really good and I wanted to train and I wanted to do it. And now I have had in the past like year or two being out of school, I had to be like, oh shit, I kind of like my goal of like getting training and like doing that. I kind of did that. And now I don't actually know what I want to do with this. So it's a continual process of like, what is the kind of work that I want to do, I guess? What is the kind of like impact that I can have with this? What is the role of an actor in society right now? As everyone, anyone who could pick up a phone and, more and more people without the awareness, or without calling them actors. So many people are actors these days on TikTok and like doing things, and people are. But there's also a difference between the craft of acting and like being an entertainer. I think a teacher one time was like, "Do you want to be an entertainer? Or do you want to be an actor?" Because there's a difference, for sure. And finding that line is tough. And being able to, obviously you want to have money to like do projects and stuff. So obviously I want to make money and be in commercials and stuff and do that kind of stuff. But yeah, I really don't know right now, currently, what my goals are, other than becoming like, I want to do theater. Yeah, that's what I want to do.
I heard a line once that's always stuck with me, that a better name for social media would really be performance media.
Yeah, that's good.
That's kind of what exactly everybody is seeing.
100%.
And you said earlier that the life of an actor or an artist is difficult here, hard. Well, what's hard about it?
Where to begin?
I assume the rejection is a big part of the consistent disinterest in rejection.
100%. And sometimes it's not even rejection. It's the fact that you're just putting out self-tapes and stuff and you're not hearing anything back. But it's not just so much the rejection. It's like, for me personally, it's like sometimes watching a lot of shit. Like I stopped watching some shows and like movies as much as I did than when I was before I went to school, because now I'm looking at these things and I'm just like in my head about like, oh yeah, they cast that person because of that. And I'm not that. Like you start to see yourself, you just start to, it becomes this thing of like, you're looking at yourself through a casting person's lens, or you're seeing yourself through like, do I fit the mold or not? And that's a really difficult thing to have to like, every actor deals with that, no matter who they are, until you're like, maybe like A-list or whatever. Everyone's constantly comparing themselves to another person who either got the role or did not. So you're constantly basing your self-worth on like getting a job, or feeling like, also feeling like an actor needs to be like working as an actor to call themselves an actor. Like I now feel comfortable calling myself an actor, even though I've like been in like now one thing that I've actually gotten paid to do as an actor. But I've always seen it as like a way of living. Being an actor is a way of like moving through the world and seeing the world and stuff. So like that's why I'm an actor. But like it's hard to feel like you have all this stuff to give, and you have all this whatever you have, and you just want to be able to do it, and your whole thing is just contingent on someone else being like, yeah, I see you, you're right for this role, you're not right for this role. It's really just of seeing yourself as, am I the one for the role or not? And then that bleeds into like social life, romantic life of like, because it's another interesting thing of like dating apps are like, everyone's like essentially like a casting director for their potential partner or something, and you're like yes or no, and you're swiping through a bunch of headshots essentially. And so when like, if dating's not going well and that's not going well, then all of a sudden it's like everything is just like, wow, I suck. It's like I can't do anything. And then you forget that you don't suck at all, that all your skills and your talents and the things you've done are right there, just off to the other side. But until you're given the opportunity to do that, you feel like nothing. You feel like you have nothing to give the world. I frequently have thought in the last 2 years, I'm just like, what am I doing? Like there's stuff like, if I want to like, there's like the lofty thing of artists that they want to like do good for the world or like help or do that stuff. And you're sitting there and you're like, I mean, shit, I could go be a teacher. I could go do 10 things right now that will help the world, or whatever these lofty ideas are. If I just not give up acting, but like, you can just go do it right now. If that's why you're acting, for that reason. And so that's why it's like, there's a lot of like, that self questioning of yourself about like, what am I in this for? Like, what am I doing? Because, and then the answer is like, well, you have to go make your own stuff and you go make your own things. And I'm like, I get that. And I will at some point, but also like, I also love being an actor. I love saying other people's words. Like I love the acting part where it's not connected to me. I love doing something where I can bring myself into something else. Like that's what I want to do. I don't want to make my own stuff right now. I don't necessarily feel like, but then you see it and then you see like casting stuff, and then you're like, well, okay, now I'm not going to get these roles because it's not that I'm not right or wrong for the role. It's just that there's someone who is like the most close to like right for the role, or like whatever the idea is. Like, it's like a nerd character, whatever. It's like, I can be a nerd. I can act like a nerd, but there's someone out there who can who really you look at him and they're like, that's perfect for it. And like, I've been in school, we had a fun thing where like they made us cast a project and they had us use the other actors. And so like, we got to sit on the casting table and we're like, yeah, that person's great, but like this person's just clearly who they just fit what the role is. And it was so scary because it's like, oh shit, that's completely out of my control. So it is important for me to it's important, I think, for an actor to be able to make their own work, or to be able to just find roles that they fit into, that people will see them and be like, oh, that's who you are as a person. That's who you are. And I can do something with that. All these, it's difficult when you look one way or something, but you feel something on the inside. And it's like, this is my type that I am, but this is not how I act. I act against my type. I'm a very tall, masculine looking man, but I'm very goofy and silly, and I'm not usually I'm gay. I have a little, there's a feminateness to me. So if I want to act and just be myself, I have to if I'm doing any other roles of what my type looks like, I have to I'm doing more acting in that sense, but no one's necessarily going to know that, because when you present that way, it's just, they're just like, oh yeah, that's kind of who that person is, maybe. Which is the interesting part.
I don't know how much you've thought about this, but success in the long run to you, is that more in line with supporting yourself doing the art that you love, or is there more that you think you would probably need to regard your career as being successful? I know from just having these initial conversations with artists and actors that the people that America knows about, who are very famous or quote unquote successful, is 1 in 100,000, 1 in 10,000, whatever.
Yeah.
How do you think about success?
Yeah, certainly. And I think that's part of the difficult life of an actor, is that you're dealing with the public perception of what an actor is. And that's based, like you said, on the people who are famous and who make it. And, but when you quickly start acting, you're like, oh yeah, okay, success would mean success in a general way is maybe raising a family and being able to afford a house based on your acting. You don't have to live in a big house. It doesn't have to be, it can be a little house. It could be something, but you're making your entire source of income from your acting work. That to me is a successful actor at the moment, or that has been. And there is a truth to that. And there's long-term success is, certainly it's tough. I'm so new to my because that it's really weird to think about that. And I'm now starting to think about it in different ways of seeing oh shit. Yeah. It's because not only that, there's your body of work can say something about what you've done, or I think that success right now success feels just don't quit. Success is if I'm still doing it in 10 years, then that's successful, because I told myself I would never quit, and I want to live up to that. But there are times when it's damn, this shit is tough.
Yeah.
To the point where it's not worth it. To the point where it's just there's so many other things that I could be doing. And you tie yourself to the fact of, when you've committed to being an actor, there's the sense of giving up is the worst thing you could do, because everything that I've been telling myself is I'm going to do it. I'm going to become something. I'm going to do it. And so to give that up, or to just not even to just give it up, but to just pivot even a slight step and be okay, I'll get into teaching, or I'll get into something else, feels like you're just massively letting some part of yourself down. And it feels like it would be embarrassing. It would be, it would be a thing of damn, I've been lying to myself this whole time. And it's really painful to admit that. But there's more, but I think there is more to success than just being able to do it, just not quitting and doing it. There's the other side of there's the part of acting and the part of the business that it's like, you know, you have to make concessions and you have to understand how the business works also to like play the games and stuff of like, okay, I'll get in the gym and I'll start to work on my body, or I'll like do these things, or I'll start to really try to, put my business package together and like do all this stuff. Like there are those things, and those things are like important in a sense of showing, you know, those people who got famous also, they did not get famous. Most people, they don't get famous like overnight, and they don't get famous accidentally. It's like very targeted, and like they work hard to get that famous. Then they don't stop. And they're the people who are like conventionally successful in this business are relentless for sure. And really hard workers, and people who are going through all of the struggles that like an actor that like also other actors are going through, but they're able to like however overcome those, or like they have the determination and the grit to be like, I don't care about rejection. Getting the that rejection is scary that I talked about, and starting to see yourself in that way, it's scary, but it's also like you don't have to go through that. You can be like, I'm not going to put myself through that. But to face that rejection and then to like in the face of it go and continue to be like, no, this is who I am actually. Like you're rejecting me for who I am or whatever. It's like, no, I believe in myself so strongly that like that's when you really get tested as an artist, where it's like, you know, when people aren't liking what you're doing, or when people are like, or when you're doing work that people are like, why are you doing that? Or like there are other barriers to like your confidence, and you still are able to like push through that and be like, no, I am right. Everyone else is wrong. That's like, I don't think I'm quite there yet. I'm learning how to develop that sense. And I think that is also would tie into my idea of what a successful actor, what a successful artist is like, at the end of the day, did I have a sort of idea of what I was doing, and was I doing it conscientiously? Was I doing it purposefully? And was I sticking to what I wanted to do? And was I not getting pulled by like the industry and all these things that can pull you away from like what you are, what you want to be? That's successful. To come out of the industry unchanged. I don't think it's possible, but it's like, but to come out of it and, you know, be still an intact person and not get caught up in all the extra things, all the glamour, all the whatever it is, lifestyle things. Yeah.
Last question I want to ask you. You mentioned his name earlier, Philip Seymour Hoffman. I loved him as an actor, and I would love to close with any thoughts you have on him and any other actors that have really impressed you, spoken to you, and why that is. What is it about somebody like him that was so inspiring, moving? Yeah.
It's easy. It's something that I posted on my stories like once a year almost, or like, you know, I always come back to it. And it's Ethan Hawke in an article talking about Philip Seymour Hoffman when he was working. Ethan Hawke, I think, was working on True West or something like that with somebody else. Maybe he was working on it with Philip Seymour Hoffman. And then Philip Seymour Hoffman was like helping him because Philip Seymour Hoffman had done it with John C. Reilly. And I think Ethan Hawke also has a sense of, Ethan Hawke has really great quotes that I also repost of, he has this one quote where he's like, if you don't see yourself teaching acting in a public high school in Seattle when you're 60 years old, if that doesn't sound good to you, then get the fuck out. Like, what are you doing? That sense of like, and then he has another quote that I recently saw of him just being like, I wish younger actors didn't think it was all just like going to the gym and like protein shakes. And he said, I wish they could meet Philip Seymour Hoffman like I did when I was 18, because it's just, the life of an actor is much more substantive than that. So I think that like those people had a sense of, I mean, Philip Seymour Hoffman, like he was in these films, but he was also like, you know, at his like theater company every day, or I don't know if it was every day, but like he had a strong backing in like theater and all that kind of stuff. And it was clear that he was in it for more than just being on stage and this vague notion of like wanting to be famous, wanting to be whatever, wanting to be the one in the movies and those, I think a lot of actors, we are pulled by that glamour and the Hollywood shots and the interview magazine and like the cool, dressing up in cool clothes and all that kind of stuff. But the Philip Seymour Hoffman quote is, he said, it was Ethan Hawke re-quoting it. And he was like, Philip, he would always tell me, you have to treat it like it's life and death, and you have to remember that you're a clown. And it's like a longer quote of like, if you can do both of those things, you won't be surprised when they get it, and you won't be like, and you also won't be surprised when they start to make fun of you again or something. But you have to keep trying to penetrate, something like that. But it was this sense of like, the life and death part and being a clown is like, I think that's also what it cuts to the core of like the quality of a good artist, of being a quality of a good actor, of letting things channel through you, is that you have to be so dedicated to it and you have to pour so much of yourself into it. But at the end of the day, you have to remember that you're just, your function is of a clown is to entertain people. It's not to like make them cry or make them like do these things or like watch them or make them watch you cry or like do the thing, like be, a grand actor. It's like, you have to take it so seriously and then be as light as a clown on stage and give up the possibility that like people will not see all the work that you've done and like see the stuff that you're doing, that it's very possible to just like work very hard and then give people a really fun time or like entertain them. And to then just like bow and be like, thank you. And not to like make it about yourself or make it about like how hard you worked or make it about like all this kind of stuff that like, like it's not, I love Daniel Day-Lewis. It's not his fault at all, but like all this, it's like the method acting, people like glam on to like, especially because like the best acting it's effortless. It doesn't look like the actor is doing anything, but like the greatest actors are doing so much and they've done so much. It's more so like the hours that you put into it are then what you're able to like perform in the baseline of it, but you're not taking the hard work into you in with you on the stage. You're just existing at that point, and you've trusted the fact that you've done so much work that you can just, it's like the same thing. That's where then I'll tie it up with like, that's to me how athletes and actors are sort of similar. It's like a basketball player, you do, you drill things for hours and you'll just highlight, like you'll just do like, okay, we're going to do like a crossover. We're going to work on between the legs. You work on it like 1,000 times and you work on it with like someone, you work on all the options that you have. Like, okay, you can go, if someone looks like this, you can go around them, shoot a layup. But then if they look like they do another thing, you'll have to be like, shoot a layup, or you have to decide to do a layup. And when you're working in practice, it's when you're, putting your attention, your effort on that. But in a game, you're not like, you're just responding with what the defender is giving you. Like, like if their right foot is up, then you go one way or the other, but you're not thinking that. Your body is just reacting based on the training that you've put in. Yeah. So there's no like, and that's what an actor should be doing on stage, is like you do a bunch of hard work in rehearsal and in training. And when you go on that stage, you truly try to forget everything and be like, I don't know anything. I don't know my first line. I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea what we're going to do. We're just going to be right here. And I'm just going to trust that all of that work that I treated as life and death is going to be cool. And we can just fuck around and we can make decisions like clowns. We can just like, we can fuck with the audience. We can look at them. We can do anything. It doesn't matter if we have the right mindset about it. So I think that quote of Philip Seymour Hoffman through Ethan Hawke, and that sort of sense of, that's kind of what an actor is. That's kind of what acting is. That's like, to me, the cleanest way to put it in a nutshell. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. Spencer, thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.